All right, Matt. So, also up for discussion here. This actually just happened within the last several hours or so. Conor McGregor, a guy who obviously you can't talk about mixed martial arts without him coming up, whether you're reminded of something that what he's done, or he's the biggest star, or if he inserts himself into the narrative. And that's, I think, more so the case right here. He seems to have taken to Twitter, as he does from time to time, to kind of wax poetic about what he feels needs to be changed about the sport, or the merits of other fighters and whatnot. He aimed toward Bellator this time, not necessarily a dig, but a criticism, which I think is a fair one, about the promotion not having any sort of standardized performance enhancing drug protocols. Similar to what USADA and the UFC have together. So Matt, we'll get into sort of the foolishness. And in fact, you know what? Let's just start off with the foolishness, um, because hey, we're talking about Connor, and he's not fighting right now. So back to the foolishness. Fabricio Werdum uh, decided to insert himself into this conversation that Connor was having with precisely no one, and he decided to take aim. Pretty much. Let me before I misquote something here. I'm just going to look at the screenshot that I have here of this conversation. Of course, this is when my computer starts acting stupid. All right, here we go. So this starts off with Conor McGregor saying, "It is crazy to think at Bellator MMA still do not have a performance-enhancing drug testing system in place. It is long overdue. Time the promotion adopts a reputable testing body in order to keep its clean athletes safe." I think for everything you could say about Conor McGregor, as far as some of his antics and out of the cage behavior, and some of his in the cage behavior, I mean, that is absolutely spot on. That is a fair statement, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone reasonable who disagrees with that. Enter Fabricio Verdum, who replied with, "Losers always will try to find excuses, or don't distracted. I guess it means get distracted by ants. At Cyborg's Gloves is a living legend. McGregor is a fila de puta. I guess is he calling him a bitch? Is that what he's saying? Um, yeah. All right. So McGregor responding, "Huh? I did not mention Chris whatsoever. Nothing to do with Chris at all. It is a request of the promotion as a top tier one to up its PED testing program. As currently there is zero in place. This is a dangerous business, and to take a lax stance here at this level is wrong." McGregor was not done, however. He followed it up with, "Actually, wait. Aren't you currently banned for steroids right now? And got your sentence reduced for ratting other people? And also just recently signed to this promotion I speak of? Whoa, man, fuck you. My lord, what a business this is." Um, but Matt,
Oh, God.
Conor McGregor, I think let's call that a 10-7 in
Yes,
his favor.
easy.
Yeah, I don't think Fabricio had any smoke for that. But let's actually talk a little bit about the merit in Conor McGregor's argument. I make my stance clear. I think that is a fair, balanced, reasonable argument. Matt, what say you? Should Bellator enact some sort of PED testing protocol at this point?
Bellator should 1,000% enact some sort of testing protocol like that. That shouldn't even be a question at this point. Um, for a promotion that likes to position themselves as the number two option next to the UFC, they want to be known as the alternative to the UFC. But yet you don't have anything that resembles like the USADA testing program when it comes to the UFC. And I get it, doing a full on USADA testing program like the UFC does is extremely expensive. And Bellator may not want to fork over that much money to do so, obviously, but there has to be something in place, right? And the whole thing that prompted this is Connor trains Sinead Kavanaugh, right, who fights under Bellator in the same division Chris Cyborg fights in, which is why I guess Fabricio thought that Connor was trying to set like subtweet at Chris Cyborg without adding her. Couple of things here when it comes to Fabricio's response here, quote tweet on Twitter. I will say Fabricio with an asterisk because he is a Ali Abdelaziz fighter, and we know how Ali likes to log into everybody's accounts and tweet stuff out. Apparently, Ali is set up in a hospital with COVID right now.
Oh, wow.
Again, if he actually meant to tweet that from his account as himself, we never really know with Ali and his fighters, right? But assuming everything is on the up and up here, Ali has COVID. Maybe he's laying in a bed somewhere, just bored out of his mind. It was like, all right, let me log into Fabricio. Let me at Conor on this because he has his Conor notifications on, right? Probably, I'm sure. Some show people. Anyways, but to insert Cyborg into this conversation and then use the wrong account. That's not Chris Cyborg's Twitter handle.
Was it Chris Gloves or something? Said
Cyborg's Gloves. Like that's some random account. Like I don't know, not Chris Cyborg. And anyways, but to insert him there is like trying to say like, hey, that's highlighting like a past mistake that Cyborg has already resolved and has been cleared of ever since that moment. Right? She went through the UFC with the USADA testing program. She was fine, like every time. Like that's her and steroids, or that's a story way in the past. So to insert her into this conversation when she was never directly mentioned is like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, why? Like, what are you doing here?
I think looking for backup maybe to join this argument. It's not like Fabricio or Fabricio's representative that was was manning the cell phone at the time had any real bars. Those weren't bars. That was a pretty tepid attempt at burning somebody. So I'm guessing that was a cry for help. Like I need backup right now. But I think also too, let's keep in mind some of the things that Conor McGregor has seen through his gym SBG. Well, he's got James Gallagher, like essentially his protege, who's a big star at Bellator right now, somebody that the promotion is really behind, and they're continually trying to push. But we do also know that one of his teammates, and I cannot remember that gentleman's name right now. I apologize for that. Actually, like killed somebody in the cage. Uh, 2 years ago, I believe it was in Ireland, like a regional fight, and the man was killed. And Connor's training partner was the winner of that fight, who has the death of a man on his conscience right now. McGregor was sitting cage side and witnessed this take place. So for someone who has actually seen death in the cage and is so closely affected his team, I think this is a very personal topic for him. And Connor has always been someone who has been very, very vocal against PED use. Keep in mind that was the entire basis of the trash talk between him and Nate Diaz at that first press conference they had at the UFC gym. I believe that was in Hawthorne or Torrance out here that took place. So this is kind of consistent for McGregor, even if we find the random nature of the tweet odd, and he does this from time to time. I guess the bottle of proper 12 tasting real good, and you got your phone in your hand, you say things. But I can't argue with this sentiment at all, and I kind of question someone who would. Like, what exactly is your motive in questioning the need for PED testing in a major mixed martial arts promotion? And then you look at Fabricio Werdum, his recent history, and it's like, ooh, Connor, you got a couple good points there. For someone who has a violation on their record, for someone who is under suspension as a result of this and missed so much time off their UFC career and whatnot, maybe you should be quiet about this. Maybe you shouldn't speak out against Bellator having some sort of PED program. But Matt, I got another one for you here that perhaps I'm taking this in a different direction here, and forgive me if I'm stomping on some points that you want to make here. And please stop me if that's the case as I go further down this rabbit hole. I think this is a great opportunity for Bellator right here. Bellator has the opportunity to do something better than the UFC is doing it. The USADA program is grossly off. It's how they enforce certain things, the way the athletes were essentially drafted into this and this whereabouts program and whatnot. And we get why as far as microdosing and usage and how things can cycle out of your system quick and the purpose behind that. But the thing is, the fighters didn't agree to it, and it's a violation of privacy essentially to have like Uriah Faber's story of being at the hospital as his child is being born and USADA shows up with a cup for him to piss in. I just digress a little bit. I wish a motherfucker would show up to the hospital while my wife is about to give birth, asking me for anything.
Dude, yes.
I wish someone would. Please try it. See what happens. So you have these gross violations of just personal boundaries and personal space. Um, Perhaps Bellator can do this better. Perhaps they can find some way to make a compromise, something that the athletes can agree to, something that is easier to enforce. Maybe it's not as stringent, but it checks the boxes, if you get what I'm saying here. Because right now, the whole thing that Bellator is doing, like Scott Coker, essentially has taken Dana White's place as far as his old stance on PED regulation. Oh, well, we're regulated by the government; they handle that. That's the stance that Scott Coker has taken by not, kind of getting some sort of third party to verify that these athletes are clean. Maybe this is a chance to do it better. What do you think?
It's definitely an opportunity because especially how depending on how many people actually see this little interaction between Connor and Fabricio's Twitter handle tonight, um, it could bring up a lot of questions when Bellator has their next event. Media are present and they're asking these questions, and then it starts becoming an issue for Bellator when it keeps getting brought up. So eventually, they're going to have to answer for it, unless Scott Coker could very well go out there and just say, "Yeah, we're not going to do anything differently." And then I guess you really can't keep pressing the issue because they're just saying flat out like it's not an issue or an area of concern for us, which at that point you kind of have to accept it. I I remember back at UFC, what event was that? UFC two something or another, 200 maybe, I forget. Anyways, interviewing Mark Hunt at Media Day, when he had all of his issues with guys taking steroids, and this particular example was against Overeem, whenever he fought Overeem again, the most recent time. He harkened back to his days at Pride, where, he was like, what are they doing about drug testing here? Or he asked the officials and the guys there, he's like, what are you guys doing about drug testing there, as he was negotiating for his contract there? And he said they all just started laughing. So so at that point, you understand what you're signing up for, right? You realize, okay, it's the wild, wild west out here. Like they don't care if guys cheat. They don't care if guys, it's not really cheating if it's allowed, right? They don't care if guys use steroids is the right way to put it. So if Bellator is saying, we are not interested in adding any additional hurdles for our fighters, so to speak, to clear to be able to step into our cage, then it's just like, hey, it is what it is. You guys have to accept that. You know what you're getting into when you sign on the line for Bellator. Your opponent may or may not be cheating leading up to this fight. Again, it's not really cheating if it's accepted. So your opponent may or may not be using performance enhancing substances before his fight, outside of, fight week testing or whatever they have going on right now. So it's just like, you have to really temper your expectations for fighters that are free agents, for guys that are looking to potentially make a move when it comes to re-signing with the UFC, or, hey, Bellator is over here, they're offering a little bit more money, but at the end of the day, I kind of like this USADA thing that's going on over here because I know what I'm stepping into in the UFC's octagon. But when I go to this big circular cage thing over here, there's a whole other animal going on, literally. And it's these are the kind of things that fighters are going to have to take into account. As they say, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Like for those fighters that may have felt wronged at the UFC when you go into Bellator, well, sure, you may get another 5 or 10,000 on your paycheck, but what are the other issues that are still a question? And this may be one of them if Bellator doesn't address this.
And also, too, let's keep in mind that if you are relying on the government, you're relying on whatever commissions are, have jurisdiction over the event to do the drug testing. Let's take a look at most of the places that Bellator goes. You're talking about Mohegan Sun, talking about Thackerville, Oklahoma. You're talking about places that don't necessarily have the best regulation in general, that they're not considered the top tier commissions. Now, yes, Bellator, under normal circumstances in the world, they'll make a trip to the Forum in Inglewood. I've been at a few of those. They'll make a trip to Madison Square Garden from time to time. They'll make a trip to the bigger markets where they have more established commissions there that handle these things on a regular basis. I don't believe Bellator has been to Las Vegas. I could, please correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't ever recall them being in Las Vegas. Um, but it wouldn't be beyond Bellator's abilities to find themselves at MGM Grand or Pearl of Palms or what have you not. But I say that to say that if the large majority of your fights are in these smaller markets and these smaller commissions are to be responsible for drug testing, that's almost like saying there isn't drug testing. At least anything that can be deemed reliable, by any reasonable stretch of the imagination. So that's something to keep in mind. And if Bellator is going to operate with these questions hanging over the head, I mean, it might be time to revisit this. And it's not like this is a company that is necessarily in financial peril. Necessarily, Bellator may not be this huge money maker. I'm not familiar with their books, but I think the safe money says that they aren't exactly generating this tremendous amount of cash. But they are owned by Viacom, a
Yeah.
a huge, huge, huge multi-billion-dollar entertainment conglomerate. They can foot the bill for some form of PED regulation. Let's just be honest about that. And considering that Viacom has seemed to taken a renewed interest in Bellator by appointing Steven Espinosa, who is the head of Showtime Sports, giving him some sort of power over the promotion, and then also redirecting their broadcast from the really ill-advised Paramount Network to something more suitable like CBS Sports. There is some sort of interest that Bellator is driving at the Viacom offices right now. And if they're truly interested, you are going to invest in some sort of PED regulation, even if it's just for appearances, even if it's just to shut up people like me and you. There is some merit in that, and they've got deep enough pockets to pull it off.
No, you're 100% right on that. But the question with that comes in, as you mentioned, Viacom's an entertainment conglomerate. How interested are they in becoming a regulator of sport when it comes to drug testing for their one outlet that would require such a thing? Whereas, the guys in the boardroom can say, you know what? We're cool with government regulation. You know what? If they're cheating, you know what? That could result in a more exciting fight at the end of the day. We're here for entertainment. We're not here to regulate sport. That could be the argument I could see happening inside of a boardroom. So if it doesn't happen, it wouldn't really be a surprise to me, but they absolutely have the means to do it. It's just, can you get the suits in the boardroom on board with making this, a mandatory thing, a thing that they see value in? To foot the bill, because they may be frustrated enough as is. We don't know what it looks like behind the scenes over there at Viacom. Like, are they happy with Bellator right now? I would assume that they are, because they obviously haven't slowed down anything. Like you said, the move over to CBS Sports, like that shows like, hey, there's some good things going on with Bellator there. But at the end of the day, like that's the question they have to answer. Like, is there value in this for us doesn't make sense for us when it comes to our bottom line as a company. And I don't know if they're ready to answer that question yet, or maybe they have already answered that question, and maybe that's why it hasn't happened yet.